The plug-in hybrid version of Toyota's Prius is very clever indeed. Where a conventional Prius is severely limited in the distance it can travel and the speed it can go on all-electric power, this model is far less constrained. To the point where, if you only ever need your car for short trips and you regularly charge it, you'll hardly ever have to visit a filling station. Unlike full all-electric vehicles though, this car can undertake longer journeys too, seamlessly switching to normal petrol-electric hybrid power when the battery runs down. There are certainly cheaper routes to low-cost eco-friendly motoring, but there aren't many better ones. Complicated stuff, this eco-friendly motoring business. After all, every brand you talk to seems to have a different idea as to what it's all about. Should you be looking at an eco-friendly diesel? Or perhaps a pure electric vehicle driven by batteries alone? Or maybe a better approach is found by combining the two, either with an electric vehicle that has a so-called range extender engine for longer trips, or with a proper petrol-electric or diesel-electric hybrid where the battery is constantly helping out the conventional engine. Decisions, decisions. You could wrestle with them all day. Or perhaps simply buy one of these. Toyota's Prius Plug-in. The Prius, as you probably know, is a petrol-electric hybrid. The petrol-electric hybrid, in fact, with 2.6 million sold worldwide since the car was launched at the turn of the century. For years it had the automotive eco-market to itself, but no longer. These days, potential buyers who use their cars over longer journeys point out that its fuel and CO2 returns can be all but matched by many much cheaper conventional diesels. While those favouring shorter distances wonder why it can only cover less than 2 miles on electric power alone, when rival models with range extender technology can manage nearly 50. Toyota has a ready answer for both groups and continues to offer it in a conventional hybrid version of the third generation Prius that still dominates its green-fingered market, cheaper to maintain and more ecological than any diesel, whilst also being cheaper than the GM Ampera and Chevrolet Volt range extender models. At the same time though, the Japanese brand knew they had to move the game on again. What, they wondered, would happen if the batteries in a Prius hybrid could be charged not only by your engine when you were driving, but also from your household main supply when you weren't. In other words, what if this car could be a PHEV, or plug-in hybrid electric vehicle? Wouldn't that give everyone the best of both worlds? You might well think so, and the end result of all this clever thinking, the market's very first plug-in hybrid, this car, was launched in the middle of 2012. We're going to put it to the test. Now, as many owners of the existing conventional Prius hybrid will know, the car doesn't go very far on battery power alone. It's great fun to waft around in virtual silence, but you only need to have gone a couple of miles down the road before the petrol engine thrums smoothly into life. This Prius plug-in hybrid retains the usual Toyota hybrid Synergy drive power plant, but thanks to smarter rechargeable lithium-ion technology, it can, on electric power alone, cover longer distances, up to 15.5 miles, and reach higher speeds, the maximum in EV mode rising from 31 to 51 miles an hour. In other words, you really can use this plug-in model for much of the time as a proper electric car. Unlike an ordinary Prius, it's not just a petrol-powered hatch that uses batteries to occasionally help out and keep its running costs down. The difference, of course, is fundamental, offering up a car that can potentially run on cheap, mains-generated electricity for most of the time, yet one that doesn't induce uncomfortable range anxiety when the time comes to venture further afield. That's important. Whilst it's certainly the case that most typical journeys are very short, it's equally true that a very large number of car owners undertake longer trips several times a month. And no one wants to run the risk of getting stranded by the roadside. In a Prius plug-in, you won't be, even though you may have been trickling around on electric-only power all week. Of course, you could say the same about a rival model with so-called range extender technology, something like, say, a Vauxhall Ampera with its little petrol engine to help out when the batteries deplete. But then that's a slightly bigger, slightly heavier and more expensive car. It's certainly a more complicated one. At first glance, the plug-in hybrid concept does seem to offer a simpler approach. Did I say simpler? Well, as simple as any car can be when the concept behind it is this complicated. Let me try and boil down the essentials for you. The lithium-ion battery in this Prius plug-in is different from the feebler, old-tech nickel-metal hydride unit in the conventional car, but all the other elements of the full hybrid system are the same. Namely the 1.8 litre VVTi petrol engine, the powerful electric motor and the generator, all driving through the same eCVT automatic gearbox. The total power output's the same as an ordinary Prius too, 134 brake horsepower, though the extra 35 kilograms that's been added to the curb weight, mainly due to the more powerful battery, means that the 0 to 62 mile an hour time is a second slower, occupying 11.4 seconds on the way to 112 miles an hour. Not that any typical Prius people will be wanting to try and match these kinds of figures in practice. The soft ride, the vague power steering and the cornering body roll are all effective in discouraging an aggressive driving style in any case. Anyway, in using this car, you'll have other things on your mind, not least the necessity of choosing between 3 different drive modes: HV, EV and EV City. Here I've selected HV. That's our hybrid vehicle setting, which allows the car to work just as any ordinary Prius would, with the petrol engine constantly cutting in and out to assist the hybrid synergy drive system as required. At any given time, a neat energy monitor on top of the dashboard shows you what is charging or being driven by what. Now though, to the differences with this plug-in model. If I select EV or electric vehicle mode, the car will draw on the hybrid battery's full capacity for the 15-mile range and up to the 51 mile an hour maximum that I mentioned earlier, provided that you don't use more than low to medium throttle. That's a big proviso in real-world motoring, so much so that in tests, typical users told Toyota how frustrated they were by it, with the engine butting in all the time when the car was supposed to be in electric-only mode. So in response, the Japanese engineers have added a third EV City setting that allows more forceful use of the throttle before the engine cuts in. If you can't trust yourself to be light-footed on the throttle pedal, selecting the Eco setting that's operable in any of the 3 driving modes will restrict accelerator travel for you. That'll help you get the most from the electric-only driving range, of course, and the sensitivity of your right foot is something you can keep an eye on through the hybrid system indicator that you'll find on the Eco Drive support monitor. Now this gives you a bar graphic showing the point at which the engine will start under acceleration. Keep just below it and your silent progress period will be optimized, something further assisted by pulling the stubby little blue auto gear stick out of D and into this lower B slot. That'll encourage extra regenerative braking, reclaiming more of the energy that would normally be lost when you brake and using it to recharge the battery. Of course, no matter how careful you are, your electric-only driving range will quickly be used up, something you'll be able to keep an eye on via the EV driving range display you'll find both on the hybrid system indicator and the main energy monitor. When the range depletes to 0, the car will seamlessly switch into petrol-electric HV mode with hardly a murmur. And at the end of your journey, if you're interested, you can refer to a special EV driving ratio indicator that'll show you what proportion of it was covered on electric power alone. The display will also show you the amount of power and fuel used and how much fuel was saved through using electricity from external charging. You really will have to be a committed Prius person to notice the differences between this plug-in version and a conventional model. assuming of course that you missed the plug-in hybrid logo on the front wing and the battery charger lid on the right hand rear wing. Other than that, it really is down to fine detailing. A larger lower front grille section with various chromed and silver highlights, a blue smoked paint finish in the extended sections of the upper headlamps, silver accents on the door handles and clear LED lamp lenses complementing silver license plate trim at the back. Other than that, the changes made to this third generation Prius have been kept to a minimum, including the major difference I was expecting to find, that of boot space. This plug-in variant, after all, has a much larger battery than its conventional sibling, and all those cells have to sit somewhere, taking up the cargo area as they did in early prototype versions of this car, but not in this final production version. True, the 4.4 kilowatt Panasonic developed lithium-ion unit raises the boot floor by a couple of inches, but that only takes 2 litres away from a luggage capacity that at 443 litres is very creditable indeed. That's 50% more than you get in a rival extended range electric vehicle like a Vauxhall Ampera, or indeed something more conventional like a diesel-powered Ford Focus Econetic. If you need more space, pushing forward the split folding rear bench frees up 1,120 litres. There's more good news when it comes to the question of rear passenger space. For a start, don't take for granted the fact that you can, at a pinch, seat 3 people here. That's simply not possible in a rival Vauxhall Ampera or Chevrolet Volt, even though these are apparently bigger cars. There's also more room here, especially for the legs, than you'd find in something conventional like a Focus or a Golf, and headroom is also adequate despite the sloping roofline. At the wheel, you're surrounded by Toyota's usual high standards of fit and finish, with the various switches and screens managing to easily impart an enormous amount of information very quickly. The dual-zone dashboard is exactly the same as that in the regular Prius, designed to minimise the time the driver has to spend looking away from the road. You get an upper display zone with a head-up display and a central meter cluster that includes the EcoDrive support monitor, from which so much of this plug-in model's driving information can be gleaned. Further down is the so-called lower command zone, dominated by the Toyota Touch multimedia screen, situated next to this short, stubby, dash-mounted auto gearbox shift lever that's positioned to fall nicely to hand. This Prius represents the market's most affordable route into plug-in hybrid motoring, but as is inevitable with new technology, it's still an expensive way to go. If you want proof of that, just look at the cost of something like a Volvo V60 plug-in hybrid, around £45,000, even aided by a government £5,000 plug-in car grant. Aided by the same grants, Toyota's pricing is a lot more realistic than that, as you'd expect from a lower-powered, less upmarket car. But it still pitches this Prius plug-in onto the showroom floor at just over £28,000. If that still sounds a lot, remember that this model is only offered in one top trim level, the highest available, and that a similarly equipped conventional Prius hybrid would only save you just over £3,000. And rivals? Well, Peugeot has developed a plug-in version of its 3008 crossover model, but it's a diesel rather than a petrol hybrid and will cost you significantly more. Other than that, your other plug-in hybrid options at this level are pretty limited, which means that if you want a car that can manage normal short trips on electric-only power, yet also has a conventional engine on board for longer journeys, your only alternative is to go the EREV or extended range electric vehicle route by choosing either Vauxhall's Ampera or Chevrolet's Volt, both essentially the same design. Now with these two cars you get a longer electric-only operating range, but you'll end up with a 4-seater only design and a boot that's 50% smaller. Apply a more flexible brief to the purchase of a car like this, and of course your options widen. Maybe, for example, you won't be undertaking long journeys and you're happy to put up with so-called range anxiety. If so, it's worth pointing out that the price Toyota asks here is more than enough to get you into a fully electric, battery-powered car. Currently, the market offers two of a similar size to this Prius. Cheapest is the Renault Fluence ZE, which will probably cost you around £22,000 once you bought the car, then allowed for, say, 3 years of the separate battery leasing charges that are on top of the sticker price. A more sophisticated alternative that you can buy battery included is Nissan's Leaf, which prices up to around £25,000 for a top spec version. So the all-electric route will save you over plug-in technology if you don't mind the danger of getting stranded by the roadside with a flat battery. And of course, you can save even more if you don't mind settling for something more conventional. An ordinary petrol-electric hybrid, for example. Toyota's own Prius and Auris hybrid models start at just over £20,000, as does Honda's slightly more feebly powered and less economical Insight model. More expensive is the Peugeot Citroën Group's so-called Hybrid 4 four-wheel drive diesel hybrid technology, found in Peugeot's 3008 for around £27,000 and in Citroën's DS5 for around £33,000. Those then are all the hybrid or electric options. But is it possible to buy an environmentally orientated family car that doesn't rely on batteries for its eco-friendliness? Many would argue that you can. After all, at just below or just above the £20,000 mark, you'll find super frugal diesel-powered family hatches, cars like the Ford Focus Econetic and the Volkswagen Golf Blue Motion, with diesel engines tuned for very efficient returns, 80 to 90 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 80 to 90 grams per kilometre of CO2. Impressive, but still way off the potential of a plug-in Prius, a quieter car that comes as standard with the kind of automatic gearbox that neither the Volkswagen or the Ford offer. It would also be cheaper to service and would save you the congestion charge. This Toyota will be much better equipped too. All Prius plug-in models get LED daytime running lights and headlights and 15-inch alloy wheels, plus the Toyota Touch and Go Plus system with its touchscreen controls and voice recognition, via which you can oversee satellite navigation, a Bluetooth phone connection, audio streaming, a DAB digital tuner, and all the other functions of the 8-speaker JBL sound system. The setup's connectivity allows access via your phone to Google local search and downloadable apps for services like live parking or fuel price information. And there's a useful text-to-speak function, as well as a USB port. Other standard features include a rear-view parking camera, making up for the fact that parking sensors are on the options list, plus auto headlamps and wipers, front fog lamps, air conditioning, a head-up display, cruise control, heated seats, and a leather-trimmed steering wheel. Safety stuff runs to everything you'd expect, namely twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a driver's knee bag. Then there's all the expected electronic assistance for braking, traction and stability control, as well as anti-whiplash front head restraints, Isofix child seat fastenings and rear lights that automatically flash in panic braking to warn following motorists. Once you've decided you can afford a Prius plug-in, then further justification becomes fairly straightforward if all you care about is low running costs. Exactly what these are is open to a bit of debate. After all, in many respects, the NEDC, or New European Driving Cycle test that produces the fuel and CO2 figures we quote for ordinary cars, doesn't really suit electric vehicles, as in certain scenarios the figures will effectively be infinite. Nevertheless, Toyota has put the car through the NEDC process and come up with a combined cycle fuel figure of 134.5 miles to the gallon and a CO2 return of 49 grams per kilometre. For reference, a standard Prius hybrid manages 70.6 miles to the gallon and 92 grams per kilometre. Rival extended range electric vehicles like Chevrolet's Volt and Vauxhall's Ampera claim better figures, but they're more expensive and less spacious. Rival pure electric vehicles like Nissan's Leaf and Renault's Fluence ZE also quote better returns, but with these of course there's no conventional engine to help you out when the battery runs down. As for an ordinary diesel, well, the best of the current bunch would be something like a Volkswagen Golf Blue Motion, which manages 88.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 85 grams per kilometre of CO2. Impressive, but still way off Prius plug-in hybrid territory. Figures from Toyota's own 5-year Prius plug-in hybrid test program probably give a better real-world idea of the comparative frugality of this car. They suggest that one of these will be about 36% more frugal than a best-in-class diesel vehicle and about 50% more frugal than a comparable best-in-class petrol model. But of course it all boils down to how you drive the thing. Whether you select the eco mode that restricts throttle travel and tweaks the air conditioning, whether you use the gearbox B setting to increase the energy gained from regenerative braking, whether you keep an eye on the hybrid system indicator to keep the petrol engine from unnecessarily cutting in, whether at your destination you're able to plug in and charge the car ready for the journey home. In other words, lots and lots of variables. Optimise all of them and the bottom line rewards are well worth having. But you've really got to be focused on doing it. Your success can be measured by a monthly average fuel consumption record and an EV driving ratio indicator that'll show you what proportion of your journey was covered on electric power alone. The display will also show you the amount of power and fuel used and how much fuel was saved through using electricity from external charging. You can even reassure yourself over how much you're saving the planet thanks to a novel forest display you can bring up on the monitor. This converts the amount of electricity sourced from external charging into a reduction in CO2 emissions. For every 10 grams saved, one little digital tree will be planted on the forest picture that you get on the screen. And as the number of trees increases, flowers and even animals will be added to the display. All very lovely. Perhaps more seriously, Toyota reckons that this whole eco approach will ultimately lead to what it calls the smart grid concept, based around the idea of a smart house. Now this is apparently the kind of thing we'll all inhabit in the future. The building equipped with a home energy management system which controls the generation of electricity by solar panels, its storage in a home battery and its efficient consumption. A plug-in hybrid car like this one would be integral to such a system, with its battery even linked up to the house to provide domestic power in case of an emergency. That's the future, but what else might you need to know about the costs of running this Toyota now? Well, talking of houses, it would be wise to get the electricity supply in yours checked out to make sure that there's the necessary dedicated circuit to charge this car. British Gas are Toyota's preferred partners and will give you a free site survey. Plus, if you progress with them, a low-cost off-peak saver tariff. As a guide, Toyota reckons that each time you charge up this car from empty, a process that takes about 90 minutes, it should cost you no more than about 50p. And that around 769 miles is possible if you start off with a full fuel tank and a fully charged battery. What else? Well, this car easily, of course, qualifies for zero road tax and exemption from the London congestion charge. The insurance grouping of 16 looks affordable too, when rivals like the Nissan Leaf and the Vauxhall Ampera can be pitched as high as Group 22. Business users will be pleased to find that this Toyota attracts a lowly 5% company car tax rating. The regular Prius is taxed at 10%. Finally, in the unlikely event that anything should ever go wrong, there's Toyota's 5-year warranty. Is this logical extension of hybrid technology the future of motoring? Probably not, but it's an important step along the way. It won't be very long before plug-in technology is the preferred route for hybrid buyers, at which point you'd hope for more cost-effective pricing. But would you buy one of these today? I think a significant number of Prius owners might. After all, if you want to run on electric power most of the time, yet need to have a conventional engine always on hand for longer trips, then this is the cheapest car that will deliver exactly that. at a price which isn't much greater than that of a similarly equipped standard model Prius. So goes the argument for this car. It's still an expensive way to cement your automotive eco-credentials, but then new technology always is. And without early adopters like the people who are going to buy this car, it would never take hold at all. Ultimately, this Toyota is aimed first and foremost at Prius people, and I don't doubt that those who can afford it would love one. Whether it can reach out for broader acceptance beyond these folk will depend largely on whether the whole concept of plug-in hybrid technology captures the public's imagination in the way that, thanks to this Japanese brand, conventional hybrid motoring did at the turn of the century. After all, more recent times have seen pure all-electric cars singularly fail to do that. But plug-in models like this one are a different proposition, less compromised and more accessible for a larger bank of buyers. Expect to see many more of them. And bank on Toyota leading a newly revitalised hybrid market all over again.